This is day 2 of our ride in the C&O and Gap trails. Check out my day 1 video where we ride from DC to Harpers Ferry. On day 2, we rode from Harpers Ferry to Hancock. The purpose of this video is to show what the trail looks like and things to see along the way. On day 2, we started from the Quality Inn in Harpers Ferry. Since the Quality Inn at Harpers Ferry didn't have a very good breakfast and we couldn't find any sub or sandwich shops in town, we decided to try Shepherdstown, 12 miles down the trail. About 26 miles from Shepherdstown, we stopped in Williamsport to get food and water at a Sheetz gas station. We had our lunch by the aqueduct in Williamsport, which is a nice place to hang out. 13 miles past Williamsport, we stopped to check out Fort Frederick. 12 miles past the fort stop, we arrived at Hancock and stayed at the Hancock Motel. If I were to do the ride again, I'd check out the Super 8 Motel and see how that was. Check out my video on where we stayed in the C&O and Gap trails. All right, let's get to the trail. So here we are leaving Harpers Ferry. If you watched my day 1 video, you know that there's a pretty steep staircase. So we lug our bags down the staircase and then come back up and lug our bikes down. And then we're off. You can see ruins of an old lock there to the right. Now we're on the trail. What was kind of interesting is this is September and there was a lot of leaves on the ground. I can't imagine what this trail would be like in the fall when the leaves really start coming off. Another aqueduct we passed through. So like I said, 12 miles down the road, we decided to stop in Shepherdstown to see if we could get ourselves some subs and a breakfast. To get to Shepherdstown, you got to wind up this fairly large path to this massive bridge. Once we get up to this point, you get a little bit of a peek at Shepherdstown. We keep going up to the top of this bridge. Once we get to the top, there's a decent bike lane on the left-hand side. Get a nice view of the Potomac from up here. And we roll into Shepherdstown. This is a college town. And on their main street, they have a variety of coffee shops and restaurants. We hung out at MJ's on German Street. We got some breakfast. This guy makes some amazing subs. We like to get subs and sandwiches in the morning, throw them in our bags, and then we can stop whenever we want during the day. So here we are on our way back out of Shepherdstown. So we go back across the bridge, go down the ramp. Once you get off the bridge, there's quite the switchback that takes you down to the main trail. So here we are going back down to the C&O trail. Take a right, and then we're going to roll on. This place was really interesting. Stop here and check it out. It's the dam for the big slack water that was used to control water flow in the canal. Largest brick structure of its time. Further down the trail, you hit this really interesting section where you have this concrete path that skirts around rock outcroppings on your right, and you got the Potomac on your left. It's a really pretty area. The Potomac here runs pretty still. See a lot of people riding along here. And it alternates between kind of a crushed stone and these paved sections. See some ruins. Right up here there was a restored water wheel, a grinding mill. So we stopped to take a look at that. Check it out. Makes you wonder about the amount of effort it took to carve this towpath out the side of these rock faces. At this point, the trail changes. It basically transitions to a gravel road. A bunch of potholes along here. There is traffic along here. It's like you're driving through the backside of people's camps at this point. So here we roll into Williamsport. We're at about mile 93 on the C&O Trail. There was two interesting historical things to see here. There was an old remains of a elevator for the barges, and then there's a beautifully restored aqueduct. We had lunch at the aqueduct, and then we decided to roll into town to Sheetz and just grab some drinks and some snacks, and then we headed back out onto the trail. Here's that barge elevator. It's kind of cool. Then we hit Sheetz, grab some snacks. This is heading back out of town. You cross this bridge, and then it'll drop us back down to the trail and then over to the aqueduct. So back under the elevator, we pick up the trail and then to the aqueduct. It's a pretty big one. Somebody did a nice job of restoring this. Nice view of the Potomac off to the left. So it's off to the left there. There's a stone bank, and we had our lunch there in the shade. Back on the trail. Here's another one of those flood control dams across the river. There was quite an extensive set of features here that were built in the 1800s to help control the water flow on the canal. Here we encountered more of those paths right next to the Potomac and right next to big rock outcroppings. It really kind of boggles the mind at how much work it took to carve these towpaths out. Beautiful area. More locks, more lock houses. I think at one point there was up to 73 locks along the trail. So Fort Frederick is right off the trail. You cross over these railroad tracks and then go up this hill, and there's this big fort. So we cross the railroad tracks, climb up the hill, and then there's an outbuilding. There were farm fields off to the right, very large, wide open area, and then there's this fort. The day we were there was incredibly quiet. I think we only ran into one other person there. There's quite a history of this fort that goes back to the 1700s, during the Revolutionary War time. I think that there was some history with the French and Indian War. There's some history with the Civil War. Some slave actually wound up getting the fort and lived there, made it pretty profitable. It's got quite a long history. This is the interior of the fort. Out next to the fort, off to the left outside the fort, was facilities and a little visitor center. At that point, the visitor center was closed. We're back on the trail. I believe this is called the Big Pond here. This was how the trail kind of changed too. It started to turn into more like 2 tire tracks more frequently. Another aqueduct. So we get to Hancock, Maryland. There was a place where we crossed over the canal and we pick up the West Maryland rail to trail bike path that goes through town there. Take that down to North Pennsylvania Avenue that intersect with West Main Street. We take a left on West Main Street and then take that until we get to Blue Hill Road, and then the Hancock Motel is right off of Blue Hill Road. There is a bike shop in town if you need it. We did not stop there. We did stop at the Subway for dinner that night, and then the next morning, because the Hancock Motel didn't offer any kind of breakfast, we stopped at Sheetz, got ourselves some breakfast sandwiches, loaded up on some sandwiches for the lunch that day, and then we hit the trail back the next morning. We did hear that the Potomac River Grill did offer breakfast, but the day that we were there, they were not open. Lesson learned, always check if the place you're planning on eating is open, because there was a number of places that were not open along our trip. If we were to do it again, I think we would check out the Super 8 Motel in town. Check out my other video where I go through all the places that we stayed along the way and what we thought of them. Did they offer breakfast? How was the shower? What were the places to eat nearby, and so on. So we've crossed over the canal. We've picked up the West Maryland Rail to Trail bike path. This takes us down to the Pennsylvania Ave. We cut up, pick up Main Street. Past Sheetz, where we got breakfast the next day and picked up sandwiches for the next day's lunch. Here we're going to turn left onto Blue Hill Road and then make the climb up to the Hancock Motel. And here we are. The Hancock Motel. Again, check out my other video. I go into a lot more detail about the Hancock Motel and the other places that we stayed on our trip. So the main office is off to the left there. We parked, checked in, and that was the end of day 2. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, maybe subscribe. If you have any comments, any tips that you have for other people, please leave them in the comments below. Check out my other videos, my day 1 ride, and the places that we stayed. Now get to those trails.